circle. Their lives intersect constantly, but they are not necessarily people who would immediately turn to one another for emotional support. Alcohol changes that. More importantly, pain changes it. Steffy does not have to explain everything to Carter because he already understands what it feels like to have the future you wanted suddenly disappear. Carter does not have to pretend that he is fine because Steffy is clearly not fine either. For perhaps the first time, they are able to look at each other without the usual expectations surrounding them. There is no Finn standing between them. There is no Daphne standing between them. There is no wedding celebration. There is no romantic fantasy. There are simply two broken people sitting together after two different relationships have fallen apart. That is precisely what makes the situation dangerous. When people are emotionally healthy, they can recognize the difference between genuine compatibility and temporary emotional relief. But Steffy and Carter are not in a healthy emotional state when they meet. They are vulnerable. They are intoxicated. They are angry. They are lonely. And they understand each other's pain. That combination can create an incredibly powerful bond. The conversation between them could become one of the most important scenes of this storyline because the emotional connection does not need to begin with physical attraction. It can begin with understanding. Carter can tell Steffy that he knows what it feels like to lose the future you thought was guaranteed. Steffy can tell Carter that she understands what it means to love someone who keeps making choices that reopen old wounds. And suddenly, both of them have someone listening. That may be exactly what they have been missing. Steffy has spent so much of her life fighting. She fights Sheila. She fights for her marriage. She fights for her children. She fights to protect her family. She fights to maintain control when the people around her create chaos. Carter, meanwhile, has spent much of his recent storyline searching for emotional stability. He has wanted love, but his relationships have repeatedly become complicated by circumstances outside his control. When these two personalities collide in a moment of weakness, the result could be explosive. One of the most fascinating questions is whether Steffy's feelings for Finn are actually ending or whether this is simply another temporary break caused by the Sheila crisis. That distinction matters. Steffy may remove herself from the situation because she believes she cannot continue living with Sheila hovering around her marriage. But leaving Monaco does not automatically mean she has stopped loving Finn. In fact, the opposite may be true. Sometimes people react most strongly when they still care deeply. Steffy's anger could therefore be interpreted as grief. She is grieving the marriage she thought she had. She is grieving the sense of safety she wanted. She is grieving the belief that Finn would finally understand why Sheila represents such a threat to her. And that grief is intensified by the fact that Finn may genuinely believe he is doing the right thing. This is what makes their conflict so complicated. Finn does not necessarily have to be portrayed as intentionally betraying Steffy. His mistake may be that he does not understand the emotional consequences of his choices. He sees Sheila as his mother. Steffy sees Sheila as a threat. Those two truths can exist simultaneously. But marriage becomes extremely difficult when two people cannot agree on how dangerous a third person is. Ridge's reaction demonstrates that Steffy is not alone in her perspective. When Ridge tears into Finn, he effectively tells Finn that love for Sheila cannot come at the expense of Steffy's safety and emotional well-being. This confrontation could have enormous consequences moving forward. Finn may finally be forced to choose between maintaining some form of relationship with Sheila and protecting his marriage to Steffy. And if he chooses Sheila, even indirectly, Steffy may decide that she has no choice but to walk away. But if Finn chooses Steffy, the question becomes whether he can actually keep Sheila out of their lives. That is the impossible problem. Sheila is not someone who disappears simply because another character asks her to. Her presence has always had a way of returning at the worst possible moment. That means Steffy may feel that Finn's promises are not enough anymore. She wants proof. She wants action. She wants boundaries. And if Finn cannot provide them, then Steffy's trust may be impossible to restore. At the same time, Carter's storyline is developing in an equally dangerous direction. Daphne's departure leaves him emotionally exposed, and his encounter with Steffy could create consequences neither of them anticipates. Imagine what happens if they wake up the next day and realize how much they revealed to each other. The conversation might haunt them. Steffy could feel embarrassed by how vulnerable she became. Carter could regret allowing his pain to pull him into a situation he never expected. Or, perhaps more dangerously, they could discover that the connection felt real. That is where the storyline could move from emotional comfort into genuine temptation. The key word here is rebound. A rebound relationship is not necessarily fake. Sometimes people meet someone at the wrong time and still discover something real. But when two people are using each other to escape heartbreak, it becomes almost impossible to know where emotional dependence ends and genuine attraction begins. Steffy may initially see Carter as a safe place to unload her pain. Carter may see Steffy as someone who understands him when Daphne no longer does. They could begin spending more time together simply because they feel understood, and then the lines could become blurred. That would create an enormous problem for the entire Forrester family. Steffy and Carter are not isolated characters. Their choices affect Finn, Ridge, Brooke, Daphne, and numerous other relationships connected to Forrester Creations. If Finn discovers that Steffy spent the night drinking with Carter, his reaction could be explosive. Even if nothing physical happened, Finn could see the situation as a betrayal. And Steffy could respond that Finn has no right to judge her after bringing Sheila back into their emotional lives. Suddenly, the Sheila conflict could transform into a completely different kind of marriage crisis. Finn could accuse Steffy of moving on. Steffy could accuse Finn of pushing her away. Carter could become trapped between guilt and genuine feelings. And Daphne's return to Paris could suddenly become even more significant if she realizes Carter has developed an emotional connection with Steffy. This is exactly the kind of chain reaction that The Bold and the Beautiful does so well. One emotional decision creates another. One betrayal leads to another. One broken relationship opens the door for a new relationship that may be even more complicated. But there is another layer to Steffy's behavior that should not be ignored. Her decision to go to Forrester Creations instead of home suggests that she may not feel emotionally safe confronting Finn yet. Home represents her marriage. Home represents her children. Home represents everything she believes has been threatened. Forrester Creations, on the other hand, is familiar territory but emotionally neutral enough for her to hide for a while. Except Carter is there, and Carter is experiencing his own crisis. This creates a strange form of emotional sanctuary. Neither person is required to solve anything. They can simply sit with each other. That may be the first time Steffy has felt understood since learning about Sheila. It may also be the first time Carter has felt understood since Daphne walked away. And that shared understanding could become addictive. Not necessarily because they are immediately in love, but because being around someone who understands your pain can feel incredibly comforting. That comfort can become attachment. Attachment can become attraction. And attraction can become a betrayal. The writers could take this story in several directions. One possibility is that Steffy and Carter simply share an emotional night and later regret it. This would still be enough to create tension because Finn would inevitably question what happened.